Some children have no access to phones and we're not being able to do anything for them at all.
School is no longer only a brick and mortar building.
The virus will play a really evolutionary role for education.
It wasn't really easy for teachers. They had to unlearn and then relearn.
Education is seen as a social offering, but we've forgotten the fact that it's real salaries we have to pay.
My name is Anubha Sharma. Started an NGO called Angel Express Foundation in 2012.
My name is Leena Asher. I'm the founder of Kangaroo Kids in Billabong High. I have started a new project called Corroborate. It's a parenting engagement platform.
Hi, I'm Deepa Bhushan, Director Schools for the CP Goenka group of schools. So this is the quarantine story of the field of education. So sometime in January, we got to hear about the coronavirus.
I remember still up to almost the end of March going to the office till the government actually announced that we were going to go into a lockdown, which is when, we started staying at home.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है.
I remember going to work on 18th of March. Schools were told that, you had to shut down from the 19th. It's only when 21st March, I think was the last day that I went to school and I came back. I said, it's a week's time and we'll be all back to work. Here we are today. I think more than 100 days into the lockdown and being in our homes. Never thought this would happen to us. So once school shut and we saw that this was extending, we knew we had to get children back into the educational space.
The virus will play a really evolutionary role for education. I've been for a very long time saying that education is just so archaic in its offering, and while we revolutionize every other aspect of our lives, the way we travel, the way we entertain ourselves, the way we speak, we do so much in terms of how we use technology to enhance our lives, and yet we've done zero as far as education is concerned. People have dabbled a little bit here and there.
One of the first things that we did was that we cancelled all the examinations that were to be done for the children, especially till grade 8. We promoted children to the next grades even if they were unable to give a few exams. For the 9th and 10th, we waited for some more time. We had to wait for the boards to tell us. We didn't take this seriously. We just thought it was a short-term space and we'd be back in our regular format, not realizing that we're going to have to move into an online format so soon. I mean, managements of school, teachers, parents, and of course our students. Everyone has had to go through this learning curve, which hasn't been easy.
It was seriously infectious. One would have to look at social distancing and social isolation. Once that started to become a reality, then the first concern was that we had decided to kind of shut our centers to make sure that nobody was getting into a risky situation because of whatever we were doing. But eventually, as we saw that it was beginning to feel like a never-ending story, we started taking action. We were going to have to help our kids and their families if we didn't want our kids to face starvation or go hungry.
So teachers have been trained to teach in a physical format. So we've always used technology for teaching, but the way technology was used was very different. It would be by teachers showing video links, PPTs, using interactive boards. The scale of teaching through technology was not in the way it is currently. We had to understand how the online space worked. So we started doing calls, video conferencing calls with each other to understand what were the hiccups, what happened if everyone started speaking together, how could you mute yourself, how could you ensure there were no chats happening? How could you safeguard privacy? Looking at cyber security, you couldn't have too much of screen time. Also connectivity, because we were also piloting. We started looking at best practices across the world. This is the first time that with a global pandemic, everywhere across the world we're going through the same concern. But the best part of technology has been, and this pandemic has been, that we've collaborated across the world.
First, we needed to ascertain how many kids actually had access at all to phones to be able to start the classes. Some children have no access to phones and we're not being able to do anything for them at all. Right now, less than 50% of the children that we have with us, but something's better than nothing. Even early in April, when we started doing ration distribution, a lot of parents had appealed to us saying that please बच्चों के लिए काम भेजो, सारा दिन खेलते हैं, मस्ती करते हैं, कुछ काम नहीं है, सिर्फ TV देखते हैं. That was what gave us the idea at first to start WhatsApp groups and start sending worksheets and reading material for the children, and then eventually went into classes, online classes. So each child may be connected to one volunteer for English, where there will be conversations a couple of times a week for maybe up to 30 minutes. You send whatever material you want to send ahead. allows the child to go through it, and on the calls only to discuss doubts and to clarify whatever it is that he or she needs to learn or know more.
We reached out to a lot of international schools to get these resources and utilize them in our teaching practices. Of course, we had to change a lot of things also to suit the Indian context.
By the time we realized that this lockdown was not going to end in a hurry, we didn't want our children to suffer any kind of emotional consequences. We wanted them to have an outlet, people to talk to. So our volunteers started getting in touch with children so as to distract them and to engage them in productive, fun things.
Teachers won't lose their jobs. We'll need even more teachers than we have. The fact is that only the really motivated, engaging, exciting teachers will survive.
Normally in India, the month of May is a holiday for all the teachers. But this May, everyone was working so hard. Every teacher was working so hard to ensure that, she was learning how to manage this space and how to teach in a virtual school.
The only classes where we are focusing on maintaining speed of completing syllabus as is required academically is grade 10. There the students will have to face board exams, and that is one place where we can't allow a slackness, and there the students are equally conscious of the fact that they're going to have to face boards. Other than that, honestly, I feel that this is a time where mental health in our lives are more important than education.
Learning can happen in any manner. At this point of time, we've been speaking about the 21st century skills. These seem more important than just the content that is being taught in classes, whether it is creativity, communication, whether it is resilience, persistence, adaptability. I think that's the largest skill that we need in today's times.
Education needn't be only what is there in books. Education can be imparted in a lot of ways, including through conversations, general knowledge, discussion on news, and various kind of items.
In a school day, there's so much happening. Of course, you have your subjects being taught, but then you also have your sports and performing arts activities, physical education that happens, even if it's just going down and playing in the grounds during their break time. If you look at that, and then if you compare to what it is today, the children are online, of course. So when they're online in the morning, we do give them some time to interact with their friends and their teachers. Human connections are very important in today's time. So we've also given a 10-minute break between each class for children to get up, to stretch, to do a few eye exercises which we've shared with them, tips on how to get ready for an online classroom, what's a good posture for sitting, how do they take care of themselves, all that.
Right now, the child gets up and there is no structure around his or her day. They just do whatever chores they are required to do at home. Some children have families of 6, 8 people. Sometimes when the classes are happening, there is too much background noise going on because there's stuff happening at home. The challenges that a child from a poor background faces are far more than a child in a privileged home.
We're actually shifting the responsibility onto the child, and I think somewhere this is a benefit for all our learners because it makes you self-driven. Now here what happens is the parents are also engaged in the learning process. Some of them are very happy about it, some not so, because of course they also face their challenges with time and everything.
We're actually going to go backwards educationally to move forwards. So if you look at the Gurukul system, you had neighborhood creches or learning centers. I have a child, I'm interested in engaging kids, I love kids. I will have 7 kids in my home and I look after them like a mom would. I engage them activity-wise. I can be cooking with them. I can be using the home as a learning environment.
We're also taking children on virtual field trips. And a lot of spaces internationally have also opened up. They're walking you through their spaces. Our teachers are thinking out of the box. They're making quizzes and crosswords, and they are researching online on how can we make learning engaging for our children.
Any conversation with an educated person is an education for our children.
Assessments have changed. So if they've done a lesson, they have to summarize it by recording it themselves and send it across to the teacher. Also, children are being asked to do research and form their own videos and their presentations and send it across to the teachers and upload it.
Thankfully, we don't have pressures of completing syllabus like schools do. Therefore, we can design our own interaction and engagement. And I feel that right now, keeping the mental health of the child and their interest engaged in interacting with us is far more important than completing any book.
Children are digital natives. We aren't. We are taking our time. One of the things I used to always say was flip the teacher where technology is concerned. And in today's times, more so. During an online classroom, the teacher, of course, got them all in, asked them to keep themselves on mute. But the children found their way. They were meeting each other after so many days. So how could you ask them to be mute? And they started chatting with each other in the chat box. And the teacher was wondering that how has this happened? Like after the classroom, she came back, and she told the coordinator, we'll have to find a way so that they can't chat with each other in the chat box also if we want to pass on the message.
As long as we're using technology in healthy ways to meditate, to listen to music, we've got to teach our kids to have that healthy relationship with technology. If we don't have this fear psychosis around technology, we will develop healthy relationships. I mean, once upon a time when print first came into being, we were all made scared of print. We were all made scared of radio and then television and now technology. It's just the way man is. Before he accepts it, he'll first have to find ways of fearing it.
The younger ones are able to cope better because they have less demands on their time. I think they're able to entertain themselves better. We find a lot of older children feeling bogged down. They are anxious, they're scared, they're bored. The mental health is not great for many of the students.
So one of the things that the government did was they ensured that through DTH channels and radio, children were able to access a lot of lessons. Internet connectivity, we know, is an issue in a lot of places. There are limited number of devices in any home, and the parent is also working from home currently. So difficult for a parent to provide a device for each and every child always. Also, what has happened is children who were unable to access schools or to come into schools and all can also now avail of schools on devices.
We are trying to do smartphone donation drives so that our kids, especially the kids in older grades, have access to online volunteers. We're helping children get data packs.
Well, the economic impact of this COVID-19 has been massive. So it has impacted a lot of parents, which in turn has impacted their ability to pay fees to schools. Also coming into the online space, the parents feel that why should we pay the fees when we're not having access to those resources? The schools state that they've already invested in these resources and have to continue paying for these. So how do we manage? It's a vicious cycle that's there currently. One way of getting outside this vicious cycle would also be if the government stepped in to support the schools. Then schools could support parents.
Some schools have got rent relief from their landlords and others don't. And that's all grey as well, because why doesn't the government come up and say, anyone who has a net worth of over X and owns property can't charge rent, something that's not random. Everything's random at the moment.
In the future, the formats of examinations will have to change. The parent and the child become the invigilators. There's no role for an invigilator per se. Now all institutions will have to relook at the way they are taking admissions. So a lot of higher educational institutions are looking at conducting their own exams which children could give online, and then admissions would be granted.
See, I don't think you would be able to get people in person for the next few months at least. And you can't let an entire year go past without doing anything with the children. Children need to be kept engaged.
And when we do get back to school, people will have to invest a lot in sterilizing schools and making sure that they're safe. And we probably will have Monday, Wednesday, Friday schools for some and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schools for some. It's very grey. I don't think anyone could honestly say that they actually know what's going to happen.
So we've started planning already for once school opens. Every school of ours would have a medical officer assigned who would be in charge of the safety and health of not only the students but also the staff. The sanitization of the premises, all safety measures being followed, the temperature gun, the oximeters, the checks happening every day. All these elements are being put into standard operating procedures for our schools.
I think online learning will get a big kickstart even for the underprivileged or the poorer section of society where this was not taken seriously all this while.
While we're still unsure of when we'll go back into the classrooms, I do not believe that we'll ever go back into the classrooms the way we were when the pandemic news occurred.
Even though we did not want to be apart from each other, we had to.
I also feel that people in India are very unaware of how serious this is.
ये देखिए, ये है मेरा रूम, ये किचन है।
हमने कोई सेफ फील नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप लोगों के साथ कुछ भी नहीं।